Welcome to the 60 minutes Principles of Functional Yin practice, where I'm going to introduce you to one of the fundamental ideas of practicing yoga and Yin Yoga functionally. Let's begin by standing up, taking a yoga block with you. Bring your feet about yay far apart. They could be close, they could be further apart. This pose is all about stretching the backs of the legs. And if this is difficult for you, you could have something like a yoga block. We're going to be here for over 5 minutes to rest your hands on. Or you could place your hands on the floor. There are 5 fundamental principles in a functional yin practice. And the one I want to talk about today is that each and every pose has a target area. A target area. That is to say that each and every Yin Yoga pose, and for that matter, I would propose every yoga pose, has a reason why we are doing it, has an area in the body that we are specifically looking to work with. And to practice yoga well, to be its most optimal for your health, this is fundamental for both the practitioner and a good teacher. The practitioner and a teacher should know why we are doing a pose, which part of the body specifically we are working with. We're about halfway through. And when we have this clear understanding, this first basic principle, our yoga practice, and specifically here today, our Yin Yoga practice, becomes intelligent rather than performative. I propose that in yoga we use the poses to get into the body, not the body to get into predefined poses. We use the poses to get into the body, not the body to get into the pose.
Each and every yoga pose has a job, has a function. That's why we call it the functional approach. For example, the function of the pose that we are doing now stimulates the backs of the legs. And if a pose doesn't stimulate the intended area for you, then this pose doesn't work. The shape, the pose doesn't matter. The function in the functional approach does. We must know why we are practicing a pose. The teacher must know. The student must know very clearly. Bend your knees, very gently come down. And rest on your back for a moment. Noticing for a moment the impact of that pose, stimulating the backs of your legs. Slowly sit up and bring your feet now quite far apart. This is not easy for you or very challenging. You could bring a block and place it right underneath your hips and sit here. The function of this pose, the target area of this pose, is now the backs of your legs and the insides of your thighs or your groin here. And again, we're going to be here for 6 minutes. To make it stronger, you could lean forward as I'm doing here. So every pose has a function, a job, a target area. This idea naturally leads to a very important concept in functional practice. That we are all anatomically, at the bone level, very different. We all have roughly the same number of bones. But the shapes of these bones can vary massively. For example, we all have hip sockets. But the orientation of our hip sockets can vary massively. Some can be forward, some can be to the side, some can be up or down. We all have femur or big thigh bones, but the lengths of these bones can vary hugely. And the shape of the femur bone, which connects to the hip socket, this can vary massively amongst us. Some of us, it can be large. Some of us can be small. Some of us, it can point towards the back of the body, some towards the front. Sometimes it can point up or be parallel to the floor. And this runs all the way through the body. And because of this skeletal variation, this anatomical variation, if we are going to feel the pose in the same place, how a pose looks from the outside must vary. Yoga teachers know often their anatomy. They know the names of the bones and muscles and joints. But they are not well enough educated on variation. And therefore teach and practice yoga as if everybody has the same ability, everybody has the same shape. The functional approach says there is no universally correct version, no right alignment of any pose. Foundationally, we must acknowledge, because we are different, there is only our variation of the pose. Almost there. Good. Now gently come out. Reach under your knees. And once more, come lying down on your back and rest very briefly. Now, roll over onto your belly. And come up onto your elbows. Option 1. Or option 2, straighten your arms and bring your hands underneath your shoulders. Whereas the target area of the last two poses was primarily muscular, the muscles along the backs of your legs. For dangle pose, the first one. And then the muscles along the insides of your thigh in straddle pose. This pose, which we call Sphinx on your elbows and seal with your arms straight, is now primarily around and about stimulating a joint. The target area is the lumbar spine, or a group of joints. You may have noticed that for each pose so far, I've given you about 2 variations. In the first one, I said you could have your feet close together or further apart. In the second pose, straddle, I said you could sit on a block or on the floor. For this pose, I've said you could have your elbows on the floor, or straighten your arms and have your hands on the floor. I've also told you the function of each pose. This pose is about the lumbar spine or the lower back. I've also told you that because of skeletal variation, there is no right and wrong way to practice any yoga pose. And that includes Yin Yoga. That includes Hatha Yoga. That includes Vinyasa Yoga. In any style. The functional approach is not a style of yoga. It's an acknowledgement, even a celebration of anatomical variation. The only thing that is important in this pose is putting your lumbar spine into extension. How much you do that depends fundamentally on the difference in the bone shapes among us. You have just under 2 minutes left. If your arm straight is too much, come back down onto your elbows. If you've been on your elbows and you like a little bit more, try coming onto your hands. neither being on your elbows nor being on your hands is more or less advanced. When we acknowledge skeletal variation, when we know that there is no right or wrong way to perform a yoga pose or a shape, when we know that every pose has a function, a target area, a natural thing that happens, not because I'm being nice, is that we realize there is no advanced or beginner, no right or wrong. There is just a function to each pose. Gently come down. And rest. Very nice. Now slowly sit up. Let me introduce you to the next pose. The function or target area of this next pose is your outer hips. You might know these as your gluteal muscles or your abductors. I'm placing my hands where you should feel it now. And you have two options. You can sit like this with your right knee stacked on top of your left knee in the middle of your body. Or you could bring your right foot on top of your left knee. And with both of these poses, you're probably going to lean forward as I'm doing here. Experiment with both of these and see which one do you prefer. Do you prefer your knees in the middle of your body with your feet back towards your hips? Or do you prefer your right foot roughly on top of your left knee? And then from here, slowly lean forward as much as you like. We'll be here for 6 minutes as we have been doing and will continue to do. So, the functional practice is one which says each and every pose has a target area. And due to skeletal, natural, healthy, normal variation in our bone shapes, we have the same bones in our body, but the shapes of these bones varies greatly. A shape which may work for you may not work for me. A pose which may not work for me may work for you. But that's not important. What is important is that we all know why we are doing the shape that we are doing. It's like buying a pair of pants in a shop. We may both buy medium length trousers, or medium waist trousers. But we also know, some of us, that those pants or trousers will be too long, some may be too short. We don't say that everyone must wear the same trousers no matter how long they are. It's your problem. No, we go to the tailor, or we get them adjusted. We have moved past universal alignment ideas, alignment cues. This comes out of pre-World War II thinking. One size must fit all. We know better now. If we stick to this dogma that we almost all practice it the same way, at the very least, some of us will become confused why we cannot do what a teacher is asking us to do. We may lose interest. At the very worst, if you insist on doing something that doesn't work for your bone shapes, then serious injury is likely. If we acknowledge that we are different anatomically at the bone level, our proportions, our dimensions, the shapes and sizes and orientations of bones vary massively. We begin to realize why some of us are good at some sports and poor at others. And in yoga, we can focus on what is really important. Not the shapes, how it looks, but optimizing the health in our body. Almost there. Very nice. And slowly come out. And once more, come and rest in any way that you'd like. gradually come sitting up. And now again, this time switching to the left leg on top, with your left knee stacked on top of your right knee, with your feet coming back towards your hips. Or the left knee on top of the right foot. Experiment with these two variations again in your own body. Which one feels better for stimulus in your outer hips? And then once you've made a decision, decide how much you want to lean forward. We're not only different among us, bone shapes can vary on our left and right sides. So sometimes one pose which works on one side of the body doesn't work on the other side. If you are a yoga teacher or you know many yoga teachers, you'll know this to be very common. Yoga teachers will say things like, I can do it on this side, but not on the other. This should be a key to really beginning to get curious about these ideas, which changed my yoga practice completely, and those I teach. There are two reasons really why we cannot do a yoga pose. The first one that I'm really talking about today is our bony shapes are different because of orientations, proportions, shapes and sizes. Our bones may just hit each other when we try to do a big movement. They may compress on one another. A clue for this happening would be if you practice a yoga pose for many, many years and it doesn't change. It is very likely that it's your bone structure which is stopping you. Bones don't stretch. Unfortunately, too few yoga teachers know about this concept. They don't know that every pose has a function, a target area. And they don't know that the shapes of our bones can vary massively. Most yoga teachers know about tightness, and that's the other reason we may not be able to do a pose. You may not be able to lean forward here because the sensation in your outer hips is of incredible tension. Luckily, you can work with tension. We can work with tightness. And if there's pain or lack of range of motion, we can work through it if it's muscular tension. Too many in yoga think that that's all that stops us. In fact, that's relatively unimportant. What's much more important is understanding that we are different. Almost there. Very nice. Now gently come up. And once more come lying on your back and rest. Now, staying lying down. The next pose is all about our spines. Spine can be fairly challenging to feel as a target area. Specifically, we're twisting and turning and rinsing the spine. And to do this, we bring our right knee over our left. It's up to you whether you tuck the foot behind the opposite shin or not. That's not really the option I want to give you. The option I want to give you is, do you bring a block under your knee before it hits the floor? You're going to stretch out your arms like this so that your shoulders and your chest are going up towards the sky, but your knees and your hips are going down towards the floor. Which of these shapes with the block underneath your knee or with no block? Which of these helps you, do you think, get into a twist which works for your body? As I mentioned, spinal twists can be a little bit challenging during the pose to feel, whether you're doing it right. You may feel this more across your chest, your belly and your abdomen. You may feel this more across your outer hips. If you do feel it in these areas, take it like chocolate sprinkles on your cappuccino. Take it as an extra. The target area of this pose is your spine in a twist. You feel it in other places. It's just a little extra something more. So far, I'm introducing you to the foundations of a functional yoga practice. And we are focusing on Yin Yoga. The foundational approach says that each and every yoga pose has a function, specifically has a target area, a part of the body that we are working with. You've had a pose for the backs of the legs, had a pose for the insides of the legs, pose for the outer hips, pose for the lower back. And now we have a pose for twisting and rotating the spine. And I've proposed that because of something called skeletal variation, which is natural, normal, widespread, there is no right and wrong way to do any yoga pose. There is no advanced and beginner. This at the beginning may sound extreme or overly, even politically correct. But this is fundamental anatomy. Too many in yoga know their bones, the names of the bones and the joints, the names of muscles. But that's like going online and looking at a map and never have actually been to the place. I propose that yoga teachers and practitioners should be fluent in anatomical variation, without which they will teach dogmatically, expecting themselves and their students to progress through a curriculum from beginning to advanced. All the while missing what the yoga practice is really about. Gently undo this, untwisting, and rest on your back for a moment. you can better feel whether the pose worked for you. If you didn't quite feel it, if you didn't feel the pose was done well, then that's again a suggestion that you need to get to know better the anatomy of your body, specifically the variable anatomy of your body. Conversely, if it was too strong and too intense, also the same. Now this time bring your left knee over your right knee. Again, is a block under your knee better for you? As you open out your arms, or do you not need the block? In another practice, I'll be able to introduce the other foundational principles of a functional practice. Today, I want to introduce to you a simple concept that each and every yoga pose has one target area in the body that we're working with. Here it's the spine. Once we become clear on this, and we begin to acknowledge, eventually celebrate anatomical variation at the bone level, the shame of not being able to do poses, or the ego trip of being able to do poses that others find challenging evaporates. It's not because one is better. The difference in shapes are due to the difference of our bone shapes. This first principle alone is simple. But this first principle alone, if you let it seep into your mind, is profound. About 2 minutes left here. Just a little longer more. Very nice. Now untwist. And I propose you simply come on to your back or roll onto your side. We're now going to take a longer rest. This is an opportunity for you now to feel in your body. Maybe for the first time. What a gentle stress for the back of your legs, the inside of your legs, your outer hips. Your lower back. And your spine feels like. Might be the first time you think slightly differently. You may know that these poses have these functions, but the functional approach says that's the principle. Each and every pose has a target area, but we're all anatomically different. Maybe this is what you've learned today. Let that settle into your mind. Maybe your gut feel that there is no advanced and beginner. Now you can begin to understand why. It's not just a wishy-washy idea. It's actually good anatomy. gut feel that some things come easy to you, while others are difficult, even impossible, you can begin to understand. Now, slowly begin to move and stretch. Roll on to your left side for a moment. And push yourself to any seated posture. Resting your hands on your lap. Or if you prefer, bringing your palms together. A yoga pose is defined by what it stimulates, its function, its target area. Your anatomy is unique. There is no right or wrong. If you feel a pose in the right place, you're doing the pose correctly. We use our bodies not to get into the pose. We use the poses to get into our bodies. Thank you.